Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talk with Coach. I'm your host, Becca Goldsberry, elite sales and leadership coach with Southwestern Consulting. This podcast is all about learning from the best in the business, those who have walked the walk and are ready to share their journeys, lessons, and hard earned wisdom. We're about to discover some invaluable tips that can transform your business or your leadership journey. So, buckle up and get ready for another episode of Talk with Coach. Today, I'm excited to have my guest, Emily Jackson. We have had the pleasure to connect because of Women Thrive. Some of you who have listened to the podcast before know that I was a part of Women Thrive last year and was honored to receive the Best Impact Speaker for last year's conference. And so Emily is a part of that this year. And Emily, just to share a little bit about her, Emily is a sales professional, speaker, and coach, author, and podcast guest. As an experienced conqueror of self-doubt, anxiety, and confusion, Emily helps women discover their path and their purpose in life through self-reflection, goal planning, and confidence building. Her Switch Up and Step Up talk and coaching program takes you through her story of feeling lost at different stages of her career path and how she has discovered practical guides to find not only her dream industry, but also to find her true self. So, Emily, welcome to Talk with Coach. I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have you as a contact through Women Thrive. I mean, I've already had such a great experience with being part of that organization. So I'm very excited to continue my journey with Women Thrive, but so happy that we were able to connect and great to talk to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. So, well, let's dive in. I want to know more about you and give us a little bit about your journey and kind of where you started and where you are today and how you got there.
Yeah. So I'm a senior channel manager. So it's a sales role, but I will say it's very focused on more of the partnership development piece. So I make sure that our partners are set up for success, that they're able to sell our products to the end customer. So I'm not one that's necessarily going to the end customers, but I'm making sure that our partners have those, skills and the knowledge to be successful, and I'm there for their support. So yeah, I'm in the RFID technology industry. And if you would have asked me just a few years ago if I would be in this industry, I would have one, not known what you're talking about, and two, I would never think that I'd be anything part of sales. And the reason for that is my background really started out in the fitness industry. In college, I'm definitely one of those people who I didn't have like a set, oh, I know I want to be a nurse or I know I want to be a teacher. I wasn't sure. And honestly, I didn't know if I was really good at anything in particular, but I knew I liked to work out. And so I thought, okay, I like to work out. I'm pretty good at that. I had been teaching like group fitness classes for several years. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can go into the fitness industry. And I did. I worked for Northern Kentucky University, which is where I went to school, in their fitness recreation center. So I did fitness classes there, personal training, and was over their like weight room staff. Very enjoyable job, I will say. Lots of good things about it. But what I found with that, and I was in that industry for 7 or 8 years. As I was a few years in, I just couldn't really see my path for the future. I wasn't sure, okay, I'm here right now. Where can I go with this? And I didn't feel like I could get to a next level that I really wanted. And what that exactly looked like, I didn't know, but I just could feel that it wasn't the right path for me eventually. But then lies the confusion as I didn't know where I wanted to go. And again, I didn't really know what I was good at besides working out. And I wasn't sure what I would enjoy. So then I started to really dive into self reflection and thinking about, okay, what are my transferable skills? I mean, we all hear that word so many times, right? Like transferable skills, we know what they are, but what are the details of your transferable skills that you can utilize in some other arena, some other career? So anyway, I know I'm going into a really long rendition here, but I looked at those transferable skills, dove into self-reflection, and found that the tech industry would actually be of interest to me. So, was able to get a job in the tech industry. First, I was working for a distribution partner, and then eventually get the role that I'm in now. So, again, I would have never figured sales would be something I would be successful at. And one of the reasons I say that is because I am definitely an introvert, not the outgoing type at all. And when I think sales, I think extrovert, right? Like that's my automatic thing. So yeah, that's really how it, and I know I talked a lot there, but that's really in the long stretch how I got there.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing. So, a couple things here. What is RFD technology or IT that you mentioned? For those of us who don't know, like you didn't, what is that?
Yeah, so RFID is radio frequency identification. And honestly, I was in the same boat. Like I said, I had no idea what it was, but we all see it and use it almost every day. So think about when you're going to the doctor's office and you're talking to your nurse. Probably, him or her probably has a badge, right? They tap it on something, either on their workstation or a reader, and it logs onto their workstation. They tap it again and it logs off their workstation. A RFID reader would be something that would replace a password or a passcode for a better workflow and for a more secure way to authenticate onto something. So if you were to go in there and she's doing a password, what if she forgets her password? Then she's got a patient right here. She's supposed to be putting in information about the patient, and she can't do that because she forgot her password, and now she's got to wait to reset it. That would be really frustrating, right? So, with just a tap of a badge, you're logged into that workstation. And that's just one of the many use cases. You would also see it on door access. So, just to get into the door, you tap your badge and you've gained access to the door, the facility.
Okay, I'm going to open up a big can of worms and people,
Okay.
it's okay, guys. So I'm just thinking in my head right now, how many times do I have to reset my password like on my computer for like all the different apps and on my phone, all the different apps?
Mhm.
Like, how easy and how nice would it be if we just had something like that for our computer and our phone so we don't have to remember 5,000 passwords for our bank, our credit cards, our Facebook, Instagram, like it could all
Mhm.
be on a card. Can we
Mhm.
make that
Mhm.
technology happen quicker and safe?
Yes.
Like, because,
That's the key.
right? And like, how can we do it safely so people can't break into, you know,
Mhm.
our stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we offer with the company I work for and our readers is that when you think about a password, whether you're in like an office environment or a manufacturing environment or whatever, a lot of times we'll see people using a shared password for all kinds of different people using a workstation, or they'll have a shared pin just kind of on a post-it note. We see that all the time. And when you think about that, you were just being really vulnerable to people hacking into your system, let alone it, like you mentioned, we all have so many different passwords of different things that we're trying to remember. So I know we're all guilty of using the simplest passwords and the most easy to remember passwords and over same passwords. So it gets rid of that risk because if you're using the same password for all these different applications and things, people can guess, oh, she's using this for this application. She's probably using the same password for another application. So hackers can gain access to everything you have access to.
Right?
Yeah.
So just, food for thought. I was like, you know what? I'm going to, squirrel in that hole because that would just be so nice to have personally, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
great.
And
So
you absolutely can use it personally. We've got little like RFID readers that are about the size of a flash drive, and they can be on phones, they can be on iPads, laptops, very, very portable. So it's usable for anybody.
perfect. There we go. So we know business is never smooth sailing, right? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges in your industry that you have faced or are facing? And how do you overcome those?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure anyone who's been on this podcast has talked about the turmoil of what COVID did to all the industries. We definitely saw that in our industry as well. Our end users or our customers are really any vertical you can think of, but very heavily healthcare. The kind of the use case I mentioned with nursing staff and hospital staff, we see that very prevalently. And that industry was obviously hit pretty hard, but the biggest problem was getting materials from other places in the US and getting that shipped because all of our readers have different component parts in them, and there wasn't a very quick access to those component parts to build out our readers. So that caused some issues all over the industry, not just with us in particular. I know we all saw that on the news, right? When everyone was going through that. That's why eggs skyrocketed and everything else. And what's interesting is, which I've never been through a pandemic like that before, and probably a lot of us hadn't. And I did not think that we would still be feeling that impact now. Like it's 5 years later, and we're still getting impacted by that in some way. Yeah, so that's something that's been ongoing. Another thing that is just really prevalent in our industry right now is mandates, government mandates that are talking about multi-factor authentication. So anyone who's listening to the news may have noticed more and more talk about cyber attacks and things happening to different companies, right? It's very, very prevalent to this day and just continues to be so. So now there's government mandates for government facilities and organizations and contractors for government for them to have multi-factor authentication. And what that means is more than one way to authenticate onto something. So if you're using a password, that you're also using a card like we were talking about. If you're doing a card, that you're also maybe using your fingerprint. If you're doing that, maybe you're also using a mobile credential. So you'd have like an Apple Wallet, maybe like an ID on your Apple Wallet, and you use that as well. So that way it would really, really safeguard your devices, your applications, and so on.
In so many industries, you're right. So many industries are still feeling the effect of COVID, believe it or not.
Mm,
For example, the mortgage industry,
gosh, yeah.
right? Real estate, commercial real estate,
Hmm.
insurance, like so many, are still feeling the effects of COVID and what it did. You're absolutely right. And I know that you've also had to shift and pivot your career as well and transitioning into a new career. What's some of your advice for somebody who is shifting into a new career or a new focus area? I would love your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. So I guess since we're talking about the pandemic, it had a personal effect on me as well in the sense that I lost my job that I had at that time. So right after working in the fitness industry, I got into the aviation industry in an operations role. And because that really honed in on a lot of things I enjoy, which is being super task oriented and organized and a lot of communication. And obviously that industry was very, very much affected when COVID hit. So I had lost my position and was without a job for several months. So during that time, that's when I honed in even more on, okay, well, I experienced this operations role and I liked it, but here's some things I didn't like about it.
Mm.
How do I pivot from that to something that I do think I will like, not just right now, but long term? So, again, looking at my transferable skills, my strengths and weaknesses, I know that's something that, like, we all maybe when we're about to do an interview, we'll think of our strengths and weaknesses, but I would encourage people to think about that more often than not. Really hone in on that so that you can understand, okay, here's the items that I need to work on. Here's where I'm really strong and I just need to really push on these and like really highlight these. So really discovering what I'm very good at and then looking at, and this sounds very tedious and it was, but looking at job descriptions and kind of comparing, okay, my transferable skills, strengths and weaknesses, what does this job description look like? Are they asking for things that relate to my transferable skills? Are they in line with things that I'm very passionate about or that I want to do long term. Of course, not all job descriptions are amazingly thorough, but do the best you can with what's on there. And then you can then decide, okay, this is where I want to work towards. And then another layer I would add to that, which I'm sure you've talked about many times with individuals, is resume, resume, resume. And what's interesting about this is I always thought I had a great resume. I thought, yeah, I'm pretty decent at writing, so I thought, oh, it looks good. It describes what I've done and everything. I sent it to a mentor of mine, and she was like, Emily, it's good, but she said, I encourage you to do more storytelling. And I was like, what do you mean storytelling? Like, am I writing a novel or something? And she's like, no, but it needs to show your impact. So not just your job description, what you did, but if you say you're a great communicator, well, how did that impact positively your customers, your role, your people that you manage? Show me or tell the story of how that impacted or made a difference in that role, because that's going to stand out to people that are employing you. And once I did that, I don't say it opened up the floodgates necessarily, but it helped extremely in really highlighting how I could benefit the company that I ended up working for.
Great point. So, storytelling, it comes back to sales, right?
Yeah.
Storytelling is a big part of sales, or it should be. If you're in sales and you're not, sharing testimonials or stories or sharing your benefits through a story. Okay,
Right.
that's a whole different conversation. But you're right. I've been working with people recently on their resumes too, and it's so factual. There needs to be some emotion to it. I tell people like, "Hey, like you did these great things, but what was the benefit? Tell us that story." I totally agree with that. And then the other thing with resumes, I don't know if you've been seeing this as well, because we basically put our resume on LinkedIn, it's all about algorithms too. And so many companies that when an resume is submitted, it basically goes through an AI process. So you've got to have,
Mhm.
the keywords, you've got to have some of the right lingo. There's so much more than in writing a resume anymore than what it was,
Yeah.
you know, just even 5 years ago. There's
Right.
so much more to a great resume.
Yes, they've definitely made it more complicated in trying to simplify it, which I get. They're simplifying it for the recruiters, which I completely understand. I mean, especially for companies that are getting thousands and thousands of resumes. I get that. But definitely harder for the individuals writing it. But yeah, I love that you mentioned keywords because that's really important. I do think you need to be careful with not getting crazy with keywords. Don't just slap them in there if they don't fully make sense. But I think that's where applying for the right roles that match those transferable skill sets that you have is really going to make a difference, because then those keywords are just going to naturally be in there. You're not really going to have to force it. So I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. As a person in sales and who is also an introvert, how was that transition? Speaking of transition, how did, going into sales as an introvert work out for you?
Yeah. It was definitely a hard transition at first, just because like I knew I could do it, and that was a part of the kind of overcoming self-doubt piece. But the biggest thing is I just thought to myself, let me just really focus on the things I'm very good at and make that work for sales. So the things that I know that I'm good at are that I'm a great communicator, as far as I'm very consistent in my communication. I'm very quick in my communication. I'm not just going to let things sit around, and I want to help customers as quickly as I possibly can. And then I'm very good at listening. As an introvert, you're going to be maybe a little bit better at listening because you're not really thinking about talking necessarily. So I've found that that really benefit me, because when you're working in a sales role, you're jumping on a call with a customer, or even in my position, a partner, and they're talking about a project or a need for your product. You want to understand exactly what they're experiencing. So it's really more about listening to them and then responding after that. So I found that to be a really big benefit in how I've done well in sales.
I love that. Such good advice too. Okay, if you were speaking to another introvert who thought about going into sales, and I will tell you, several of my friends who were in the fitness industry in the very beginning of their career happens to be some of the best salespeople I know. So, I think there might be a correlation there somewhere. But if you were talking to another introvert who happened, looking at a sales position, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. The fitness industry piece, I think it may have to do with it's kind of a coaching role. And I think that sales is kind of a coaching role, right? You're coaching that customer in order to ensure that your product is going to work for their needs, that it's going to meet every aspect of their overall project or goals. So that's the same thing if you're a personal trainer, right? You're making sure that it's going to meet their overall needs, their immediate needs, and their long term. So it's very similar in that way. But for an introvert, what I would say is kind of what I talked about before. Hone in on your things that you're really good at, that communication aspect. If you're a task-oriented person, and I'm probably biased here because I'm an introvert. I think introverts are very task-oriented, but that could just be me. But I would hone in on that because one of the benefits there and that I've really found is because I'm so task oriented and organized, I'm able to constantly remember to reach out and follow up so I can do that follow through piece really well. And I would encourage introverts to really lean into that. And then I would also say, and I know this is kind of against what introverts just want to naturally do, to while active listening is very important, make sure that you're speaking up when you do have something to say, to kind of push yourself to do that a little bit more. I definitely had to do that personally, just, maybe within my team or, in larger groups or whatever that may be. And, I found that I really like that. And also, I find that because I'm an introvert, when I do speak up, people really listen because they know I really have something to say.
Yes. So here's what I love about introverts is when they speak, there's actually some truth to it because they're not just going to fill the space up in a meeting with idle conversation or just to be talking. In our world at Southwestern Consulting, we call those a lot of times a lot of introverts are what we call detectives, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So, people who are very detail oriented, right? And they when they speak, there's something to listen and to learn from. So, I always have so much to admire from my fellow detectives and introverts. So I appreciate that. So in your guys' industry, it sounds like it's constantly evolving
Absolutely.
guys see the future of your industry, maybe say like the next 5, 10 years, and how are you guys adapting to stay ahead?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're seeing that's already in there, but it's just really starting to become more popular and there's more awareness around it is the mobile authentication piece. So instead of cards, people just using wallet credentials. So just like you do when you're getting on a flight and it's in your wallet, you can do that same thing with having what's on a card typically on your wallet as a credential and you use that instead. Whereas if you would have asked people that in the industry a couple years ago, we would have said some industries will be interested in that and some won't. For example, we would maybe have said healthcare wouldn't be interested in that because maybe nurses and staff wouldn't want to, like, they wouldn't want their people to have phones on them. But now we're seeing that's not necessarily the case. Everybody's kind of got their phones on them at all times, no matter where you are. So we're seeing that. And then I would also say we are starting to see some like retinal identification, like retina identification, things like that, facial recognition. Of course, we see that on our phones, but could be integrated with a device and things like that. We're not in that yet. We do have the mobile authentication though, so we're very prevalent in that space. But in the near future, or maybe 5 or so years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if you see even more of the retina and facial recognition piece.
It's very Mission Impossible like. I like
Isn't it? Yeah,
that.
I know. Yeah. I always think about that when I think about the retina. I'm like, "Oh, that's really, like, crazy to me."
It's like very Tom Cruise and very Mission Impossible. I
Yeah.
dig it. I think it will be very interesting. I was just watching the podcast, Mind of a CEO, and
Hmm.
he had a former CIA operative, and a lady who
Ooh.
has written like 7 books on nuclear stuff and had another like it was a very amazing and interesting 2.5 hour podcast. And so some of the things that you're working on and talking about, like there is going to be so many changes because of AI here in
Mm-hmm.
5 or 10 years, and they've had, it will be interesting to see how it affects jobs, like what
Right.
go away, what jobs need to shift. And I know
Hmm.
you're also a coach, and you've got the her switch up and step out talk and coaching program
Hmm.
you do. As you're working with people and working with women, who feel lost in
Hmm.
their career path, and all these changes are coming very
Right.
soon, I think faster than what we all can grasp at some point,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're working in that field. How are you helping them, to find like their dream industry and their
Hmm.
dream job, and helping them find like your client's true self?
Yeah, I think it's all about thinking about not just what's great for you right now. And really, I like to try to take I mean, of course, we all need money, right? Like why we work essentially, but taking that piece kind of out of the equation, at least at first, thinking about what's great for you, not just right now, but what would be great for you 10 years down the line. And then thinking, let's say you're thinking about the tech industry. Okay, well, what within the tech industry, let's do our research here as to what's going to be more prevalent in the next 10 years. Do you want to look at the AI field? You could. Humans do have to be involved in AI, so there are jobs in that realm for sure. Or do you want to are you just looking for something that right now for the next 5 years, but it can easily transition to this next step that you want to get to? So really looking at not just the next 5 year goal, but the next 10 and 15-year type of goal.
Hmm, so good. Yeah, I'm just thinking there's just so many possibilities, right? That I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people look into as a career, you
Right.
know?
Well, and you're right. We don't know where it's going to go completely. So we're lost in a way, but we just do the best we can. Obviously, we can't plan out our futures perfectly. We wish we all could, but we just do the best we can with what we've got. I do think, I mean, AI has really been around for a long time, like surprisingly. I was listening to, I don't remember what podcast it was, but talking about AI, just as I try to learn more and more about it as well. And just it's actually been around for a long time. It's just started to gain more prevalence as there's been indication of different use cases for it and how to really streamline different roles way more than just, chat GPT type of thing. So yeah, who knows where we're going to see it be in the next 5 or 10 years. So
Absolutely. So I'm going to switch topic here. I would love to know a little more about what is your keynote about for Women's Thrive conference this spring. What's your keynote going to be about?
yeah, so it is about my switch up and step up talk. So it's all about my background from getting into the or starting in the fitness industry and how I was able to switch to the tech industry and then how to continue to be successful in a career transition. So obviously I'll tell my personal story and then give tips and tricks as to how to figure out where you want to go, figure out what your goals are and what your, focus areas in your not just career, but your life you want them to be. And then how you can continue to be successful in those new roles, that new career, whatever that is. And I think that's something that, women can really benefit from, whether you're in a career for a long time and you think, I want to do something totally different. Or maybe you're like, I'm ready for a management role. Or maybe you are coming off of, an extended leave or maternity leave. Or if you're a college student and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I think it can be prevalent to women of all ages and stages of life.
I love that. So, what would be your one piece of advice, from your keynote that you're going to do that you would like? This is if anybody did one thing, this is it, what would that be?
Ooh, I love that. Love that question. I think the one thing I would say, if you just didn't get anything else from the keynote, but you got one thing, is think about your ultimate personal goal. Focus on your personal goal first, interpersonal goal outside of your career goal. Because if you don't reach your interpersonal goal, you're never going to be truly happy, even if you're at that CEO position that you thought you wanted to be at. But if it's not meeting your personal needs, it's not going to be satisfying to you.
Such good advice. I love that. Such good. So good. So good.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy how, I mean, our from decade to decade or from year to year, our desires and things that our goals are going to continually change, right? I mean,
Always.
way different in my thought processes from college than obviously now or just 5 years ago to now. So,
Yep. And I have a vision board that I created when I first started with Southwestern Consulting, December
mm,
of 2012. And as I achieve goals, I throw another picture on top of the one like I create.
mm,
And it is funny, like I will go back, we're going on 14 years here, and I will go back and kind of look at what I've covered up, and I'm like, how the things I wanted to achieve or accomplish,
mhm,
how they've changed. I think it's fun to sit back and as I was doing my keynote last year and, thought through some of the stories that I was going to share in different things, the involvement of who we are, right? From,
mhm,
the time we were little kids or the time we were born until now, how many different layers we have shed, you
right,
know, through life.
right.
And we just have to keep evolving. We can't.
Mhm,
So for you, what do you do to make sure you're not staying stuck professionally and personally?
mhm. Yeah, I love that, the constantly evolving. I mean, we have to do that to even feel. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but we have to evolve. I mean, it's not really a choice. We've got to. But what I continually do is I check back in on my goals. So I have a journal where I have. So similar to your vision board, I have a journal where I've got my goals and I separate it out of, personal life goals and career goals. And then I really reassess that usually about every 6 months. I'm looking at that to just see like, okay, is something changed or, oh, I've decided this is not the right path for me. So I'm constantly reassessing where I want to be. Some goals, I think they're not going to take very long, but they take a really long time. And some goals I can accomplish pretty quickly. But I think just continually self-reflecting and looking at, just like you were saying, I mean, your evolution is constant. So just continually going back internally and asking yourself, okay, where am I at now? And now where do I want to be? Oh,
Love that. So, okay, fun question here. What do you do to stay balanced and recharged as a busy sales professional and entrepreneur?
well, I like fitness. So I love to lift weights in particular. So I love weightlifting, not like, strongman competition weightlifting, but bodybuilding. So I'm usually I lift 6 days a week. And so it really helps with stress, anxiety, and then just keep me feeling like myself. Obviously, as I've gotten older here, it gets a little bit harder, but it is something that I enjoy. And then I also do daily journaling, like a gratitude journal. I love doing that. I started that a couple years ago. Actually, my company that I work for, they hired somebody to do like a weekly yoga, and then also she did journaling. And I joined that, and I just like changed. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it like changed my life in the sense that I started to realize what I was so grateful for in life, even like really simple things like a strong cup of coffee or something. But that's important that we have gratitude every day and realize, how blessed we are with just the smallest things. So that has really been something that helps me stay grounded and, keeps me motivated to keep bringing up or working towards new goals and not feeling like oh, if I don't reach this, I'm a failure and I have nothing. When I do that gratitude journal, I know I've got a lot going on that is great in my life. So I think that's really important.
That is very important. Is there one person in your life, mentor, family member, another coach who had significant influence on your life and your career? And then what were the key lessons that you took away from them?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many people. I think one of the biggest things that I would tell people, no matter what stage of your career, always make sure you have a couple of mentors, people that you can lean on, get guidance from. It's always nice to have an outside perspective. And it's what's always great for me as an introvert and someone who really always struggled with self doubt is to see people's outside perspective of me and realize, like, wow, I'm actually doing that well. And I thought that I was struggling in that area. And it builds your confidence in that sense. But one person in particular is actually my current manager, and I've known him for several years, but he's been such kind of a confidence booster, and he's always there for advice and just guidance. And I think that's really made a big impression on me to feel more confident in what I'm currently doing and then what I'm capable of for my future.
Sounds like an amazing person and an amazing leader. And let's face it, not all leaders are built the same. So I'm glad that you have such a strong leader. I am a huge advocate of reading or listening and just learning in general. Is there one book that had the biggest impact on you?
I love to read as well. I'm usually reading like 2 or 3 books at a time. I love to read. So, I mean, there's many, but one that I really like go back to and I actually read over and over again, like once a year, is Get Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It kind of talks about her experience, and it honestly talks a lot about self-doubt and how she's overcome that for through like trials and difficulties in her life. And I just find that to be uplifting, and it's also really practical advice as well of things you can kind of do on a day-to-day basis. And so that's one of the many that I would say is a great read.
All right, so everybody go add that to your Amazon or Audible list for sure. Sounds like amazing. And that is one I have not read. So I will add to my list.
Yes.
My list is ever growing. So, one final question. And if you had to boil it down, what are the top three pieces of advice that you would give anyone looking to either grow their business or their leadership skills?
One thing I would say, and this is more of kind of my mantra, and I think this would be most prevalent to introverts, but do something that scares you every day. It could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting, or I mean, whatever it may be, having a difficult customer conversation, but do something that scares you every day. You're only going to grow from that, and you're only going to get better from that. Another piece of advice I would say, um, is know yourself. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Know what you're good at and lean into those things. The third thing I would say is don't forget about your personal passions. Your personal passions can be integrated into what you're doing in life. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're passionate about reading, you need to be writing a book. I mean, you can, of course, but that could be part of a corporate role as well. So really lean into your passions for all kinds of different roles.
Such great advice. Thank you so much, Emily, for being on and just sharing your wisdom and some incredible tips with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad were able to get connected as well.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and learn from you as well. And I had a great time.
Well, thank you so much. So, everybody, this wraps up another insightful episode with Talk with Coach. A huge thank you to Emily for sharing such valuable knowledge and lessons from her incredible journey. If today's episode resonates with you, or if you have a burning question or a topic you would like for me to cover in the future, I would love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Until next time, remember, every step forward is part of your success story. Keep striving for greatness, keep learning, and don't forget, your journey is just beginning. Have a great day, everybody.